Welcome back to another episode of the Experts in Fire podcast. I'm your host, Mike Vennard, and with us today is Mr. Lance Mark. Today's episode is Common Technical Issues with Gas Fireplaces. Let's get into it. Hey Lance, how you doing, brother?
I am good, sir. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you back, man. So we've put out a couple episodes with our friend Lance Mark here. Lance, why don't you introduce yourself again just a little bit if we had some folks who missed the last two. What do you do here at Woodland? Who are you? All that good stuff?
I'm in the service team here, Mike. I've been with Woodland Direct 16 years. I started out in sales and then eventually started working towards helping customers on the back end when they had troubles either installing or getting their fireplaces to operate maybe after sitting for a season. That's my role here is helping folks when they buy products and need help getting it working or operating.
You're being kind. I'll say that Lance Mark is the backbone of our service team, has been for a long time. Always a pleasure hanging out with you, but today we're hanging out and we are talking about common technical issues with gas fireplaces with the caveat of, why won't my fireplace start? Right? And the definition, and I just want to help our listeners understand a little better what we're going to be talking about. Definition here of a gas fireplace could be a direct vent, it could be a vent free, it could be gas log set inside of a fireplace. But ultimately, we're at that time of year where folks want to turn their fireplaces on because they have the ability to just flip a switch and not have to split wood or anything of that nature. They can flip a switch and it's not working. So, Lance, what are some of the most common technical issues with gas fireplaces in the fall here when folks are really excited to use them?
There could be a number of issues that can cause a fireplace or a gas log set not to work. However, there are some basic principles to how every fire works. And if you can really just kind of wrap your mind around those, you can really start to dial in and find north when you're trying to figure out what's going on. So by that, fire, and folks know this, we kind of think we learned this maybe in 5th, 6th grade science, but fire needs, essentially for there to be fire, we've got to have three things. We've got to have oxygen, we've got to have some kind of a fuel source, and then we've got to have something that gets it going. An ignition, a heat source. And if we've got all three of those and all of those are in place and they're in place properly, then we're going to have success. We're going to get a fire. And so I'll pick on a real simple product, and that is, so let's say we've got a simple gas log set inside of a masonry fireplace. This is a real common gas appliance. We've got what maybe used to be a wood-burning fireplace, and at some point they converted it, ran a gas line into it, and now they've got a gas log set. And it may have a real simple control on it. And when I say controls, I'm talking about this is you go to operate this, you want to work this is the parts that you're touching, that you're using. And the control on it might be as simple as this. You match light a pilot that you turn on, and then that pilot is pointing towards a small sensor. We call it a thermocouple. And as long as that little sensor senses that pilot's going, it'll allow the valve to open up and the main burner to light up so that you've got your big fire display. If for any reason at all, that little thermocouple, maybe it's dusty and dirty after sitting for a long time and not being used, maybe at some point something got knocked around and that pilot flame maybe is out of adjustment, it's not pointing properly on the thermocouple, or maybe not hitting it at all, that thermocouple right there has got to know that there's fire. Otherwise, the way products in the hearth industry work is if everything's not working, nothing works. And then that way it's the safest situation for the customer.
Yeah, so, I mean, gas appliances work. I don't want to say it's basic because our pros out there who do this, it's funny, homeowners try to do it. And I got to admit, Lance, I've been guilty of trying to do it myself, right? With gas appliances in my home. And I think, man, the concept isn't that hard. I just need to do these things. And it might have worked once or twice. And then all of a sudden I call a pro and that pro rolls in. And they just know that process from start to finish. They know what to check, how to check it, and it's fixed in a heartbeat. And I think that's one of the most pleasurable things for what we do is when you get a pro on the phone and go, hey, brother, what's going on? What are you walking through? It really does become a simple conversation.
Yes.
because that pro knows what he's looking for. He maybe is unfamiliar with the particular fireplace or log set. You can just kind of walk him through, oh, with this one, you need to be thinking about this, or they have this piece in there. Do you have an example of something like that?
When you mention a pro, I want to take an opportunity to mention this, and that is when we get a fella on the phone who starts a conversation like this. Maybe I'm setting up an R.H. Peterson fire log set for this customer, and I did a measuring with my multimeter, and the thermocouple's not reading anything. There's no continuity. We get a comment like that. You come out of the gates, and to me, it immediately tells us, okay, we've got somebody who's got some experience and some understanding. And a lot of times when folks call us and they're asking for some help, one of the first questions they may get from our team is this, and that is, let me ask you a question, Mr. Bernard. What is your experience with installing and troubleshooting hearth appliances like this? Have you ever done anything like this before? And it's not meant to embarrass anybody or whatnot. We really need to get an understanding of, hey, at what level is this person as far as their understanding? However, to operate and do some of the things that we'll talk about, any homeowner can do it. And so familiarize yourself with your manuals, understand the products that you're using.
I appreciate that, Lance. One of the things that I really want to help people understand is the majority of the phone calls that we get can be taken care of pretty quickly. And that's why we wanted this episode to be common issues. Sometimes there are issues that go beyond, and we need to get a pro involved. We need to get the manufacturer involved, things of that nature. So it gets a little bigger. But we always wrap everything we do. And if you've been listening to the podcast for any amount of time, I'm sure you've heard us say this over and over again. Safety is always first. There is no fire that is worth your life, your family's lives, your animals' lives, or your investment, which is your home, your cabin. And I'm flabbergasted sometimes with the arguments we have to have with folks. And it's not really an argument. If you're trying to do something unsafe, we won't sell it to you. But folks are trying to cut those corners. And you know what, Lance? We were taught this by the manufacturers that we work with. By the folks that we deal with on a daily basis on the vendor side, which is my side. I don't want anyone to get hurt, so be smart. You have fire-related questions, and we have answers. You can email us your questions at podcast@woodlanddirect.com or give us a call at 586-221-3638. We would love to be able to answer them right here on the Experts in Fire podcast.
Oh, sure. In that vein, too, and I'm not just trying to be a cheerleader for the hearth industry, these products are completely safe. Mike, one thing I want to mention is this, and I think I may have mentioned this in the last episode, and that is this. Our happiest customers are our best informed customers. We find that every time when somebody takes a little bit of time to understand how their appliance works, they actually read the manual. It is what a joy it is when we have folks who call us and they've been into the manual already. They understand some of the language that we're going to talk about when we start talking and troubleshooting. But as well, they've gone through troubleshooting steps already, maybe, and started. I've done this. I did this. Like a compass that just helps us find true north. When you talk about at some point there may be a need for a pro to come in. Usually it's there's some tools that might be needed here. We might need to check some things like gas pressure with a manometer. We might need a multimeter in there, and so.
I love it, Lance. Let's just follow the system itself, right? So there's some type of button that is creating a spark so that you get that heat portion. And then there's valves. Let's just kind of run through that real fast because there's a progression to all of them. How would you kind of walk through that system to help folks understand this is the process of the system? There are some simple things you can check yourself. And I'll tell you this, some people think, think, oh man, don't tell people that stuff because, that's a pro's job. I know pros out there who are like, I am so sick of having to go to somebody's house and do this and this, and it's done because it took them 45 minutes to drive there. They got there, it was a 3-minute fix. Now they got an angry customer who's going, why am I paying you this much money for a 3-minute fix? And so we just try and help educate our customer. Here are the simple things you can do as an owner. And then once we get to this place, get a pro. Let's follow that process or that system though. How's it start?
So we've got a like a system that you mentioned. Essentially, every gas system is going to have, you got a gas line running in. The first thing that the gas line is going to attach to in that system is going to be a valve, and those valves are, people who are pros in the industry are probably listening to me saying, how's he going to describe a valve? There are a whole bunch of different, and I'm not going to do that, folks. I'm going to take you through some basics, but there are a number of different types of valves that will allow you to control the fireplace in a number of different ways. And really what it comes down to is this, and that is, are you going to be getting down there and dealing with the appliance when you go to fire it up every time, or do you want to have some kind of maybe a more convenient or remote way to operate it? Because there are fairly sophisticated electronic systems that can be in there. There are real simple millivolt systems. In a lot of ways, they operate in the same ways, and they'll take. In fact, with a millivolt system, as simple as that system is, you can hook a control up to that millivolt system. And while you can't use the remote control to light it up because it doesn't have an electronic igniter in it, once you light the pilot on it, you can use your remote control to operate your fireplace and turn the main burner on and off. And then sometimes they even have variability, and you can modulate that flame and whatnot. But all valves essentially have you got your line coming into the valve. Then and I don't recommend this under any circumstances, but that valve can be as simple as just being what we in the industry will call a stopgate valve. You just open it up, and then you put a fire on the main burner, and that's how you fire it up. You can get a little more sophisticated, quite a bit more sophisticated on these, but the millivolt valve has a real simple kind of setup in there. And essentially what it does is this. We've got our main line coming in for gas, and then that valve will allow a small amount of fuel through to the pilot only. And if we can get proof of flame with that pilot flame, and that's the job of the thermocouple. The thermocouple is really just asking, is there flame? Because if there's not, I don't want to fill this house up with gas. It's asking, is there a flame? And if that thermocouple is positioned properly and it's sensing the flame properly, it'll slowly start to build up a charge, and it'll send a small electrical charge. In fact, it's so small it's measured in millivoltages. That charge goes and it operates a really tiny electromagnet inside the valve that opens up the main valve and allows fuel to pour through to the main burner. With a pilot flame right there, that fuel going to the main burner immediately ignites, and then you get your big beautiful flame.
Yeah, so I mean, in all honesty, once you understand it, it's a pretty simple process. It has its stop gaps in there to say, if this, then this, and hey, I have a fire. Inside of that simplicity, though, there are some really dumb little things that can happen. I clean the logs and everything, and I may have bumped either the thermocouple or the pilot itself. That little piece will move and aim the flame a different direction.
Absolutely. And Mike, and to emphasize what our role is here too, and I think you'll smile when you hear this. Every story is the same story, including these troubleshooting stories. Every story's got a hero who's got a problem. At some point, he's going to meet a trusted guide. They're going to come up with a plan. They're going to try to see if they can get it to work or not to work. But you just want to make sure. We train to this here at Woodland. The customer is the hero, and Woodland is your trusted guide. We're the ones that will help you through this, and we love to make great stories too.
Love it. I love it, Lance. All right, brother, we're going to wrap it up here. As always, it's just fun sitting around talking with you. If you guys haven't figured it out as you listen to Lance and I, when we go out to dinner with our wives, they kind of just tuck themselves off away from us because this is the stuff we sit around and talk about. Because we love it. And Lance, thank you so much for joining us, brother. I appreciate you taking your time out of the day to do this for our listeners and for Woodland Direct, brother.
I'm humbled, Mike. It's my pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, everyone, we'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening. This is going to drop around the holidays, so happy holidays, and I hope you're all safe and keeping warm. Join us next time for Frequently Asked Fire Questions. We'll see you then.